Welcome back. We're playing 20 questions with.
Karyna of Karyna Loves to Plan. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Let's get into the questions. When I say fountain pen, what pen do you think of?
Oh, again, you're gonna make me do these like fast burner questions. The first one that comes to mind is my Peloton M1000 Renaissance Brown.
Very pretty pen.
It's one that I never thought I would own, but I'm so glad that I do have it now.
Pens like that are fun.
Hmm.
Uh,
Absolutely.
how did you get into pens?
Originally, it was because my dad bought me a fountain pen. It was a Cross Botanica Green Daylily, which I'd pull out, but I actually have it's in the back blur that is here. And I didn't understand anything about fountain pens back then. I just thought, oh, you have to actually replace the cartridges. This is too messy, too much work. But I thought the pen was beautiful and it wrote really well. And then I stopped with that for a few years, and then I discovered fountain pens again by watching Helen of the Coffee Monsters Co. and got really interested in it, as well as getting into the Hobonichi. So around that time when I was ordering Hobonichi as well as thinking maybe I should try fountain pens. I think I ordered 5 starter pens and I don't think I own any of those anymore, but that's how I got back into it.
So you have the same approach that Lori did, where she started by watching Coffee Monster Co. and got into it through Hobonichi, and then went, I'm going to get all these same beginner pens at once.
Yeah, yeah. I was very functional when it came to the pens that I had in the beginning. I thought I need to try all these different brands. And it back then it was never about the prettiest pen or anything like that. I didn't buy a pen based on the way it looked. I was spending money for functionality.
Yeah. Do you remember what the first pen you bought was?
It was either the Pilot Kakuno or the Pilot Metropolitan, one of those two. But it could have been like 2 orders done at the exact same time.
Fair enough. What's your current daily driver?
Ah, it actually changes because I have so many pens inked. But the pen that I was using yesterday for my work notes was my Esterbrook SE in lilac, and it has Diamine Amazing Amethyst in it right now. So very matchy matchy.
Very matchy matchy. What's your favorite ink?
And I'm doing 30 inks, 30 days now. So I'm reacquainting myself with all the bottled inks, but it's hard to this one's a hard question.
I know.
Um,
It's
but
why it's one of the questions, but I always love what people's answers are because they introduce me to so many inks that I'd never add to my collection and I absolutely adore.
I almost want to think about it in terms of color family, but then I'm just expanding it. But I really do love Taranishi Opera Rose, or like the dusty pinks around there. I also am really into browns at the moment, which was something that I never thought that I would like, but Diamine Raw Sienna is a great brown that I also like. So, and then I was using Robert Oster Cafe Crema in my Peloton M1000. So the browns and the dusty pinks are really where I'm at. I did an ink exploration a little while ago and I had way more browns than I ever thought I did.
I love like the dusty color palette is where I tend to stick. It's just so pretty and underrated.
Absolutely.
What's your favorite brand of either pens or ink?
Favorite brand of pens or ink? When it comes to ink, I think I really like Diamine because they're a brand that I've known since I first started, but also they seem to be just really consistent. And I love their shimmer inks. Absolutely love their shimmer inks. One of my favorite shimmer inks from them actually is Diamine Masquerade from the Ink Pink calendar last year because it's
Okay.
also kind of a dusty pink. But I find that when I'm comparing their shimmer inks to other ink brands, Diamine seems to be the most consistent for me. And then pen brand, if I'm going with the one that I have the most of, it would have to be Esterbrook. I'm like, how many do I have? I think I have 6 STs and 2 Model Js. So it's the one that I own the most of.
Vintage or modern?
Modern.
Do you swatch all your inks?
I do. And painstakingly
The
on
answer to
French
that.
papers.
Yeah, your swatch videos are fantastic. So
They're fun, but definitely do even have my book here. They're fun, but cutting out those little papers took one whole evening earlier this week. And then when I put that video out, I was thinking, no, I just need to do one long strip. And I did that for a video that's coming out on Sunday, and that took like a tenth of the time. So I thought, okay, there's a better way to do this instead of cutting little strips. Although, if you like repetitive work like that, cutting little squares of paper can be a little, it can be meditative, but it's a lot of work.
it's what I've got a paper punch for.
Yes, somebody actually recommended that, so I might
I
actually purchase one.
yeah, it's what I use for my watercolor swatch cards is a square paper punch because they're such a pain to cut. But for inks, I use cola ring dippers, which are also a pain to get in Canada.
This is the thing with being in Canada is, I mean, we have great Canadian retailers, but
Yeah,
it's also the price is a little bit more expensive, and even shipping across Canada is expensive.
yeah. And I'm really local to some really great pen stores, but even then, it's like, well, cola ring products are now special order at both of them. I'm not organized enough to do a special order. Instead, I have just purchased what I think is 8 months of cola ring dippers from Atlas when I was last there, and we'll see if my math is right.
See if it'll get you as far as the Chicago Pen Show next year.
Yeah. If not, well, we'll see. Might have to pay international shipping.
Yeah.
Do you have any pens that you daily drive the same ink and pen combination?
No, not really. I change up my inks and pens every month because I want to make sure that I'm using everything that I have in my collection. I do want to make sure that I spread the usage of my pens evenly as well as my inks, and I feel like I also have acquired a lot of ink samples from friends, and I'm the type that wants to use them. I don't want to have a whole bunch of ink samples or pens that are just sitting there not being used, so I try to use everything evenly.
Do you keep your nib writing samples in a way you can flip through them so you know how every nib writes, or do you just know the nib in every pen?
I think I know the nib of every pen, but I don't have a sample in a book. I have a spreadsheet.
I love that.
The spreadsheet has multiple tabs for all the pens, and each pen within that spreadsheet has brand, the model, the color, the nib size, the price I bought it for, who I bought it from, the date that I bought it, and then it also lists all the pens that I've ever sold. So it's a comprehensive spreadsheet.
I have that for watercolors, and I have one for inks like that, but it's no longer up to date.
I have one for my inks too. There's a specific tab for ink samples and a specific tab for ink bottles.
Yeah,
And I like just seeing it all in one place. Yes, there's certain parts of my life that are analog, like journaling, but then there's some days where I just love a good spreadsheet.
it's also so nice when you're like in a store to just be able to pull out a spreadsheet and be able to use the search function and see if you've got it in the spreadsheet.
Exactly. Because you can't take like your whole catalog of, your coloring dippers
Yeah.
into a store.
Oh, I do. I'm that weirdo that like puts them all on a key ring and takes them with me. I'm now carrying around 4 cola ring dippers in my purse if I think there's a chance I might go to an art store,
Just in case.
just in case. Um, what's a pen you wish you could see in person?
Hmm. Oh, that's tough to say because I just came from the San Francisco pen show, and one of the pens that was on my list that I wanted to see was a
Ooh.
Scribo feel and actually hold one. And I did get to hold one and see if it was comfortable. And I'm very particular about the way the pen feels in my hand and where the step is and where the threads
Yep,
are. So I was glad to have been able to see the Scribo again in person and just get another feel for the feel. Um, but that
how
was
did
the
you feel
main
about
one.
it?
The step between the body and the section is just a bit much for me. So with where my fingers rest, it wouldn't have been comfortable. So I was glad to remove the Scribo feel from my list so that I'm no longer pursuing a pen that is very expensive.
That's how I felt about the Visconti Homo sapien at Chicago.
It's almost nice when you're like, oh, good. It's not comfortable, so I don't have to like it.
Yeah, my issue was that it looked textured and it wasn't textured. And I
Uh,
wouldn't have, the thing is, I wouldn't have liked it if it was textured, but I was disappointed that it wasn't textured.
our
And,
brains are weird things.
and I was so disappointed that it wasn't textured that I've just gone, meh.
It's funny what we end up liking and not liking.
Yeah. What's your current grail?
You know what? I have to say I don't have one, which is great to say because I want to explore the pens that I have just acquired from the San Francisco Pen Show. There's nothing really that I'm pursuing. The most recent thing that I was pursuing was the Waterman Carette in that sea green shimmer, which was very rare, which I
Yeah.
will pull out because I have it. But I don't know if you can see it. Of
Oh,
course.
wow.
And
Yeah.
I saw this on Doodlebud's channel as well. And it was a very rare one that I was hoping to, it was my grill for, I guess, a few months. And I was hoping to try and find it at the San Francisco Pen Show, but I stumbled upon it on eBay before the show and got it at a really great price alongside the ballpoint pen counterpart.
Fun.
So yeah, at the moment, I am happy to say there is no grail I'm in pursuit of at the moment.
It's always fun. What's a pen you would recommend to a beginner?
Oh, the two that I like, and funny enough, one of them I didn't like for the longest time. The first one would be the Pilot Kakuno.
Yep.
I love my Pilot Kakuno. The nib on that is fantastic, but I also love that you can switch the nibs out between like the Metropolitan or the Pereira. They're all interchangeable. But I say recently, but maybe back in like May, April, became reacquainted with the TWSBI Eco. And it was a pen that I didn't have in my collection for a while, but then two really pretty colors came out. And of course, I had to buy both, not just one, because they both match my dog. Because that's why we buy pens, because they match the color of our dog. And then after using both for, at least a good month, I realized how much I actually did like the TWSBI Eco. So those are the two that I would recommend.
Yeah, I have to say, I overlooked the TWSBI Eco for a very long time until it kept coming up in 20 questions at the Chicago Pen Show. And so before we left the show, I ended up buying one because I went, well, I filmed 10 episodes of this and it's come up in like six of them. Well, I guess I have to buy one.
And how do you feel? I'm asking you the question now. How do you feel about your TWSBI Eco?
I like it. It's a pain to clean, but I like it. I
Yeah.
don't I don't enjoy cleaning it. And I find that I never do a full fill on it. I get bored before it's empty.
It's a lot of ink in there, but I
Yeah,
think like for anybody who is like a student or taking notes a lot or wants that ink capacity, it's great for that. But
yeah.
there's something so satisfying, and I'm actually going to pull it out because they're all right here. But there's something so satisfying about this. I just love the noise of the cap.
Oh yeah, no, they're such a satisfying pen.
Mhm.
Um, and their nibs are great.
Yeah. So I'm glad that I guess let myself rediscover them, and I'm happy to say that I changed my mind about them after having a different view.
Yep. What ink would you recommend to a beginner?
Mm. I'll go back to the brand. Honestly, anything diamine because it is um, relatively inexpensive, but also they actually do have so many amazing colors and shimmers and you can range from getting the small 30 ml bottle to a really large, I think it's like 80 ml bottle. And I there's a lot of just good base colors to start with in
Hmm.
your collection there. And then if you want to get experimental, they have really good shimmers too.
And converters if you don't want to use bottles.
Hmm.
What advice would you have for somebody wanting to try out fountain pens who might be intimidated by them?
Mm. I think the advice that I would have is um, feel free to ask questions, whether it's, commenting on a YouTube video or commenting on somebody's Instagram post or even like on a Reddit group or a Facebook group. Feel free to ask questions because most of us in the fountain pen community are so happy to answer those questions and to um, I say help educate, but I don't want that to sound like condescending at all. It help you
I
discover the world that
Yeah,
is there.
I think help educate is fair. I got a DM a couple weeks ago from somebody who went, I bought a Vaco Sport from your 20 question series, but I can't get the mini converter to fit. Help. And I went, take it and tap it on a table. They put a cartridge in the back of it because nowhere does Vaco say that they put a cartridge in the back of them. And I've made that mistake. And this person on Instagram was going, I've got a brand new pen that doesn't work. And so there is a bit of education that I think all of us end up doing over time of teaching things that maybe should be explained but aren't
But
or
also,
should.
I mean, yeah, like there's something about being able to introduce somebody else to the fountain pen world. I have been blamed by a couple of my friends for introducing them to fountain pens and to inks, and um, I feel like that blame is constant, from like Instagram posts and YouTube and stuff. But to be able to help a friend walk through, different kinds of pens, different inks, but also see them get really excited about it, it's um, it's on both sides. We're getting excited because you're getting excited. So feel free to ask questions, and most of us in the fountain pen community are happy to enable you.
Yeah, it's now a thing that when my friends and I go out to brunch, I bring whatever's new because they'll want, none of them use fountain pens, but they'll want to play with whatever's new.
Absolutely. My friend came over last weekend and I said, "Do you want to come into my office?" She's like, "Oh my God, I need to see where you keep everything."
Yeah,
And it was just like a treasure trove.
yeah. My sister refuses to use fountain pens except if I find one of the Taylor Swift pens, in which case she wants the same agreement I have with my mother, which is she never has to ink up her own pen. Uh,
Oh
I
my
will
gosh,
take
I feel like, yeah.
I will take care of the inking up of her pen with the collection of inks if she manages to track down a Taylor Swift fountain pen. So,
Your sister is like my husband. My husband's fountain pen collection has been courtesy of me. His Galen leather pen case is courtesy of me. All of his pen cleaning and inks are courtesy of me, so I get that.
yeah. Mom took me to the Atlas Sidewalk sale, promptly took a pen that I got at the Atlas Sidewalk sale and from brand, and it has become her new daily driver. And it is her new favorite pen. And I
That's
went,
awesome.
I need it back just long enough to do the PR for the brand on it, and then you can have it back.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. Uh, what filling mechanism do you think is most interesting, regardless of if you actually like to use it or not?
I think the Vacville is really interesting. but I never use. I don't have anything with a vac fill. I feel like one, don't need that much ink, but two, just cleaning it would be, I mean, I honestly, out of all the people that I've ever met, I feel like I'm the one who minds cleaning pens the least. Um, but just the vac fill is just such an interesting use of science. And, watching videos of people fill their vacuum fill pens is really mesmerizing. But then I know that it would be a pain to clean. So I don't have one, but it's one of the most interesting ones to me.
Yeah, I have one. I just got it. I'm not looking forward to cleaning it.
It's like the give and take, you get the really interesting filling, but then you have to deal with the consequences of it after.
Yeah, but it's also a sparkly pen. Like the pen
Oh, that
itself
is
is
true.
sparkly.
Oh, that's pretty. That's the narwhal.
It's yeah, their original plus in one of their special editions from last year.
Wow. And you know what? For a vacuum fill, that's actually like really well priced for a vacuum fill compared to other vacuum fills out
Yeah, it's
there.
55 US.
Oh, wow. Yeah. If you're comparing it to like a Pilot custom made 2-3.
Pilot Custom 823, not in the budget.
No.
An original plus from Atlas was in the budget.
Yeah. Yeah.
What size of nib do you prefer to write with?
Mm. I'm normally an extra fine or a fine. I did try mediums at one point. I tried broad at one point, but because I have such tiny writing, it looked like a puddle. It looked like an ink swatch versus writing. But if we're also talking about, you say nib size, but I also have I say two favorite nib grinds as
You
well.
can you can include nib grinds in this.
Okay, I love my extra fine cursive smooth italic that Kirk Spear did for me.
Okay.
And I remember when I asked a different Nibmeister about that, he said, "Are you sure there's barely going to be any line variation?" I thought, have you seen my tiny writing? There will be line variation because my writing is tiny. My second favorite nib grind is from Gina Salarino. They turned my medium on my Esterbrook SD to an extra fine with a reverse architect. And oh my gosh, is that a fun combination?
Love an architect nib. It is my least practical nib. As somebody who pretty much only writes in cursive, but is so much fun.
So fun. I wanted to find any excuse to use that pen when I had it inked.
Yeah, I almost always have mine inked. There's no reason to have it inked. But it's almost always inked. Is there a style of nib that you love or find interesting but would never actually use?
Um, and I was looking at all the different nib grinds that like Kirk Spear did before the San Francisco Pen Show, but I think one of them was I can't remember, I think it was the Naginata, but I can't remember the exact shape of it, but I remember thinking it would be really interesting, but it starts at a medium or a broad,
Yeah,
and that's just too big for me. So it's interesting, and I think I did try them at the table, but it was just too much for my writing.
yeah. I do like that Kirk has a handy chart on his website with all of the nib sizes that are needed for which grinds. I
Mhm.
wish more people did that. It
It
makes
was
things
very
easy.
helpful.
Do you have a least favorite ink or ink color family?
Least favorite ink color family. Well, not necessarily a color family, but I am not a fan of sheen. I feel like
Okay.
that is its own family. Um, I am very light sensitive, so anything that's reflecting off the sheen is going to give me a headache. So it's really just a physical response. And every time I see a sheening ink, I think you're pretty, but it's not you, it's me.
Yeah, I only own one sheening ink. I own Tesla Coil from Birmingham Pen Co. in a sample, but it also takes forever to dry, and
Yes.
smudge everything, and so I would never buy it in a bottle.
Hmm. Yeah. The first sheening ink I had was Organic Studio. Um,
Nitrogen or
no, it was
different
the
one?
Henry David Thoreau.
Okay.
Walden Pond. I love the base color, but the sheen was like a reddish burgundy, and you never saw the base color, which was a teal, because the sheen just overpowered everything. Um, so I ended up giving that bottle away.
Well, that's the perk of pen friends, is that if you dislike something, there's always somebody that will use it.
Absolutely.
Well, thanks for playing 20 questions.
No, thanks for having me.